The Pewtercast is sponsored by HuntAKiller.com, an immersive murder mystery experience like no other. You can save 20% on your first box when you subscribe by using the code Pewtercast at checkout. And we'd like to thank HuntAKiller.com for their support of the show. Welcome to the Pewtercast. I am Brent Allen, your host, and this is our Buc in the News show for Week 12. The Bucs are going to be taking on the Atlanta Falcons. This is our end-of-the-week wrap-up show, like I said, I'm Brent Allen. Normally, my co-host with me, Ren Daxt, is here, but he is not. He's not actually even in the States. He's out gallivanting across the globe, and it's about 4 o'clock where he is right now, 4 o'clock in the morning, I should say. And I kind of gave him the out. I said, Ren, you're going to be on vacation. Yeah, just be on vacation. He's like, oh, no, I'll wake up and I'll come do the show with you. But as it turns out, he didn't wake up. So I am here alone. I'm going to attempt to do the show alone. I probably should have just gone ahead and set somebody up just in case Ren wasn't able to do it. But, hey, listen, Ren, I'm sure you'll be listening to this. Hope you're having a great time over there, buddy. Yeah, man, just be on vacation. We're good. We'll try to lock this down. It's been a while since I've done a solo show, though. It's been several years, actually, since before Ren got into the show. So we're going to go through this. This is our Buc in the News show. If you're not familiar with this show, this is the one where we kind of get a chance to wrap up all the stuff that's happened over the course of the week for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're not even looking at last week's game anymore. We've moved on. We're looking towards the game this week, and the work week is over for the Buccaneers. All the gossip, all the articles, everything that's going to be written, it's all been written. All the practices, they've all been practiced. There's nothing left to do but play the game now. And so this is where we come in and we kind of recap it all as we lead into the weekend. Now, we do that by going through a couple of different things. The first thing we look at are what are the roster transactions our team has made over the course of the week. So we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at the headlines, the big news articles that the folks in the media have written, or maybe even some of our fringe media. We'll take a look at the press conferences and all those kinds of things, all the news that has come out about our beloved Buccaneers. And then as we really start to round the corner and take a look at this Atlanta Falcons game, we'll take a look at the injury report. We'll get a feel for what's going on with that. We'll take a look to see who the Buccaneers are going to be suiting up in the game by taking a look at who's not going to be suiting up in the game. I'll give you my inactive predictions, and then we'll go off into the Atlanta games. So all the way at the top of the list here, we have the transactions. There's really only one transaction. It's not a super impactful transaction. The Buccaneers have released defensive lineman Terry Beckner from the practice squad. Terry Beckner Jr., actually, I believe is his name. Beckner was a 7th-round pick this year, the 2019 draft. Was suspended, I want to say, 4 weeks ago due to PEDs. And basically what it was he cleared suspension and they cut him. And apparently he did clear waivers, so he is currently a free agent in the NFL. He was a guy, this would typically be Ren, I'd ask him what he remembered of Beckner from the training camp that he was at every day. But I think if Ren were here, what he would probably say, or at least what I seem to remember from training camp, is he was okay. He very rarely ever flashed. He's fine. They thought enough of him to keep him around on the practice squad. He didn't make the actual roster. They wanted to keep him around, but, the PEDs, here's the thing about PED suspension. If memory serves correct, they don't suspend you the first time you get popped for PEDs in the NFL. It's actually like a second suspension, so for whatever he did, and then he got popped for twice within the first, let's hear if this is week 12, within his first 8 weeks of an NFL season, he gets popped twice for PEDs. Like, come on, dude. I can kind of see why they might have waived him. You got to take the job seriously if you're going to play in the NFL. So outside of that, there is no changes. And this really doesn't affect the Buccaneers this week from last week because Beckner wasn't on the active roster. He wasn't on the roster anywhere. And he was just a practice squad player, a guy at that. But he's been gone because of suspension. So the team this week is very much the team that was the same from the week before. All right, now let's get over to some headlines as we go into it. Actually had quite a few kind of things to run through, and so let's take a look and see. These are in no particular order other than it's how I found them pretty much online. So let's take a look. The first one, Matt Gay. Let's talk about Matt Gay for a minute. Matt Gay turns out is having a pretty hell of a year, pretty good year. This was put out by the Buccaneers Communications Department. He is currently leading the league in field goals of 40 plus yards with 12, having made 12 of them. Harrison Buckner over at Kansas City and Joey Sly are tied with second for just 10, so he's actually 2 above the 2 guys that are tied for second. Now, with that, Matt is actually second in the league in percentage of kicks over 40 yards made. So he's had apparently quite a few more attempts than Bucker or Sly, but he's number 2 at 85.7%, just behind Justin Tucker, who's at 87.5% over there in Baltimore. So very interesting. Good on Matt Gay, especially when you consider the kicking woes. And like I said, I think it just shows he's had more tries than some of these other guys. Now, Matt Gay is in the top 5 of points scored by kickers with 85 points on the year so far. I have Matt Gay in one of my fantasy leagues, maybe 2, and with the exception of like 1 week, he's actually been really solid as a kicker in fantasy. So this just leads to that. Now, with that, I actually think this is pretty cool. He is in the top 5, of kickers for points. He's in the top 3 of kickers for field goals made of 50 plus yards. That's really cool. With 4, so he's number 1 with 12 for 40 plus, but for 50 plus, he's number 3 with having made 4 of those. And his overall field goal percentage, in case you're wondering, of the year is 87%, which actually puts him at 9th in the league. That just means there's 8 other kickers who are kicking a little bit better than he is. But he's had some long shots and many attempts at the long shots, which I don't know if that says that's a good thing, bad thing, or if they just trust the kicker. So I'm not really sure. So anyway, kudos to Matt Gay. He's having a hell of a year. I like that. This past week, Mike Evans. Let's turn to him. Mike Evans has surpassed Larry Fitzgerald for the 10th most yards through 6 seasons in NFL history. Now, not surprising is this stat, given that Mike is really looking to break another stat, which is having 1,000 yards receiving in his first X amount of seasons. He joined the club last year in his first 5 seasons. He's now in his 6th season, so he'll be joining. There's only one other person who has made over 6,000 yards receiving in their first 6 years, which speaks to his durability, his continuing to be out there, even though we know he's been hurt a few games, he's been suspended a few games over that time. He still has had over 1,000 yards. Randy Moss, and I know Ren would usually point out, like, listen, 1,000 yards isn't really that hard. Over 16 games, you're looking about 67 yards a person. But if it's not that big of a deal anymore, you still have to say, well, why is only Randy Moss? Why has only one other person achieved this mark? And Mike Evans is about to tie him. In fact, as of right now, we thought he might do it last week, but he didn't. He didn't get a whole lot of targets, didn't get a whole lot of yards last week. But as of right now, he's only 7 yards away from breaking it. So, one pass, and I got to tell you, just my own personal thing, I really hope on the first offensive play of the game this week that it's a ball to Mike and he breaks it on that first play. No other reason other than just cause. Like, go ahead and get it out of the way. I'm not looking for them to force the ball to Mike or anything like that. I just kind of hope that's the way it goes for him. But when Mike hits this first 7 yards, he will join Randy Moss as the only 2 players in NFL history to receive more than 1,000 yards in their first 6 seasons. Now, this is where it ends for Randy Moss. Should Mike Evans come back next year and get another 1,000 yards, he alone will have that record as 1,000 yards in the first 7 seasons. And I really think that what makes this particular stat so memorable, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, is it speaks to his availability, his durability in the game. And I personally think, and I could be wrong, but I think that this alone should really should solidify him in future Hall of Fame status. I really do. But Mike will tell you, and he told people the other day, he's got a long way to go before he gets there. So kudos to Mike and congratulations. But for this week, he did pass Larry Fitzgerald for the 10th most yards through 6 seasons in NFL history. That's overall yards, not just 1,000 plus. So he is in the top 10 of 10th yards. And by the way, that stat I don't believe is limited to the first 6 seasons. I think it's just a span of 6 seasons. He has done that. So I guess he pushed Larry Fitzgerald out of the top 10, which is, if you're beating a guy like Larry Fitzgerald in your own profession, that's not bad. That doesn't suck. So, all right, this is a topic. Moving on. This is a topic I actually really wish I had Ren here to discuss and banter back and forth. Maybe we'll talk about it on an upcoming show. Clyde Christensen, quarterback coach for Tampa Bay Buccaneers, was quoted as saying this week regarding Jameis's turnovers, "Hey, listen, we're trying everything we can." Sorry. But it's still happening. Now, I don't know what to make of this. I really, really don't. Especially kind of given the state of, if you guys have been listening to the podcast this week, you know exactly where I've been. Given the state of where I am with this team, given the state of where I am with Jameis, like it's guys, I really, really, really want to get behind Jameis. I really want to get behind all and kind of christen him as the quarterback of the future or the quarterback of the present and the future. But I just can't yet. I just can't. And it's because I see so many mistakes. Like and it's not all his fault. That's the crazy thing. Like he has a lot of bad numbers on his record, and it's not all his fault. I think BA said of the 18 interceptions that Jameis has thrown this year, he only counts 10 of them as being his fault. Well, you know what? Through 12 games, 10 is still not a small number, okay? And when we look at the rest of his career, for whatever reason, all right, whether it's a black cloud or bad luck or whatever, this stuff has just seemed to follow Jameis around. And I again, it's not all his fault, but some of it is. And it just, for whatever reason, it's just not working. The magic isn't there. It doesn't seem to be there long term, and I really want it to be. Like, I really want to just wave a wand, get Mike Evans' Harry Potter wand out and say, hey, here we go. It's good to go. But, when a coach sits back and says, hey, we're trying everything we can, but it's still not happening. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what everything they can. You got to imagine it's just all the drills that you do as a quarterback's coach, right? It's you talk them through it. You look at the extra film. You do all the things you should be doing. There's when is it going to click? When is it going to stop being an issue? I don't feel like people are blowing this one unnecessarily out of proportion like I do feel like they blow a lot of things with their team. We do that as fans, right? We get hyper-focused on our team. And so whenever somebody has a bad play, it blows up, It's like, oh my gosh, Donovan Smith, he's horrible because he let that one play get by or because he took this. Well, we don't focus on what the other 31 left tackles in the league are doing quite often. And, so I remember a couple years ago, like there was a thing where Cutter is like, well, shoot, I think our, offensive line is like in the top half of the league. And nobody could believe it. And I'll be honest, I didn't believe it either. I say, there's no way. I watch this team every single week. There's no way you're telling me this team, this offensive line is 25 at best. It is in the bottom third of this league. Well, I went and looked it up, and I used footballoutsiders.com, and they account for, what is the running back's fault, what isn't the running back's fault, what is the quarterback's fault, not the quarterback's fault, what really is just on the shoulders of the lineman. They adjust for all that stuff, and they graded out that year's offensive line at 16, which isn't great. Okay, that's not awesome, but in 32 teams, 16 barely puts you in the top half. It does make you in the top half. So, okay, I guess he was right, but whatever. So anyway, we get hyper-focused, but we don't compare them to the other teams in the league, and we just don't know. So when we look at Jameis and we go, man, he's a turnover machine, and nobody else has these same turnovers, and yeah, he's the highest in the league, but then there's all the mitigating factors, which are real, by the way. They definitely are real, but for whatever reason, they're just happening here. And it's happened not just this year, not just in the last year or two. This has happened in every year of Jameis's career. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on. It sounds like Clyde Christensen is going, I don't know what's going on here. We're doing everything and anything we can to get this through Jameis's skull. Just for whatever reason, his fault or not, it's just still happening. And, at some point you just gotta, if this was the business world and you have an employee who every time something negative happens, it's never their fault, but for whatever reason, them in that role isn't getting the job done, you still have a responsibility to remove that person from that role. Now, whether you just outright fire them and get rid of them from your organization, or maybe you reassign them to some other thing, at some other position, whatever, that's on you, and that's your job, your role as the leader there. But if that was the private world, the business world, that's what you would do. In sports, listen, it may not all be Jameis's fault, but if it's around him and for whatever reason, the job isn't getting done with him there, then at some point you got to make a move, right? I mean, you'd think so. Hey, let's stay in the same vein, while we're here and we're talking about this, this week's Fab 5 over at pewterreport.com, SR's Fab 5, he discusses what he calls, Scott Reynolds over there, he discusses what he calls kind of a gut feeling about what it will take to turn the Glazers on Jameis. And he doesn't think it's very much. Because, guys, listen, the Glazers have historically been huge Jameis supporters. And they have been in his corner and they have had his back. They got rid of Dirk Cutter and brought in Arians. They have done anything and everything. They really, really, really want Jameis to work out. They love Jameis. They really like Jameis. But he suspects that they're at a spot now where it's one more, and I mean just one more, multi-interception game from Jameis that also results in a loss. And he thinks that would be it. That would be them saying, all right, he can't stay anymore. It's just not happening. For whatever reason, it's just not happening. It's just not happening, but it can't stay. And he's got to go. And SR talks about how all the Jameis apologists would be quick to point out the lack of defense and all these things, and they'd be right. But also, in spite of that, there are the big issues as well. And so, I actually asked Scott about that a little bit, and, his words to me were, look, the Glazers really love Jameis, but they are so over the losing. Like, they're getting really tired of it, is what he told me. So, it's interesting. I don't know what conversations Scott has had with the Glazers. They don't typically talk to the media, but if the Glazers are getting really tired of it, I got to tell you, I've done been sick and tired of it. You know what I mean? Like, let me get my hillbilly to come out here. Like, I'm over it. I've been over it. And if this is what it's taken for the Glazers to get there, and they are a long-suffering family, I guess, but G.O. So, guys, I don't know. Look, I really hope for the sake of the team, because, what it's going to mean to get rid of Jameis and bring somebody else in here, probably, you're probably not going to go out and get a quarterback who's going to take you to the Super Bowl year one. You got to go through all those growing pains with the new quarterback, probably. I don't know. They could get lucky, I guess. But, I get it. I get why they wouldn't want to go through all that again. But, at some point, you've just got to pull the plug. Got to cut your losses, and you got to move on. So, I would recommend you guys go read that over there, SR's Fab 5. He talks about that. Then he actually goes into talking about some of the first-round quarterbacks that the Buccaneers could potentially draft. By the way, there's a lot of people are saying it, and this could potentially happen. Maybe. Possibly. I don't know. It depends on how Bruce Arians feels about people looking over their shoulder. But if the Buccaneers draft a quarterback like in the first round, maybe you could say the second or third round, they're looking to replace Jameis. Now, what they could do is they could franchise tag Jameis for a year. Let Jameis go into 2020 being the quarterback, kind of knowing it's going to be a lost year, and wait for the rookie to basically take Jameis' spot. And we've seen that. We saw that happen with the kid up in New York with the Giants. He took Eli Manning's spot. Took him a couple games, but he took Eli Manning's spot. Kyle Allen taking Cam Newton's spot. Now, Cam Newton's not been available due to injury, but, the kids come in, and the big question is when Cam gets healthy and comes back, should we give the reins back to him? And that became a question. So, once again, I think we saw a rookie taking an established quarterback spot. That could potentially happen. Are they going to pay the franchise tag for him for 1 year? Maybe. Will Jameis sign a franchise tag? I don't know. Maybe. It's possible. We'll see. We'll see. So, who knows? All right, one last Jameis thing, and I'm going to get off of this subject. Just to note, Jameis did suffer an ankle injury in last week's game. I'm sure we all know that. And Jameis is committed to playing this week. So for whatever it is, just remember, Jameis is playing on a bum ankle. No excuses. There are no more excuses. I don't care why it happened. You got to win. You got to put up a W. And I got to tell you, this may be jumping ahead a little bit. I think this Atlanta Falcons team is hot. And I don't think they're about to have some cold water thrown on them. So if the Bucs are really going to have a chance, if they're going to be in this game, if they're going to compete and actually win, they're really, really going to have to show up and bring their A game. Otherwise, it ain't happening. It just ain't happening. All right, let's get off talking about Jameis for a while. Let's move on. Let's talk about Bruce Arians for a minute. A lot of people calling for Bruce Arians, including our friends over at Pewter Report. A lot of people calling for Bruce Arians to take back the reins of play calling from Byron Leftwich. If you guys have listened to this any amount of time, hopefully you already know my feelings on this. I think people place too much emphasis on this idea of play calling. And here's actually what I really think happened. I think we got so used to talking about play calling over the Cutter regime that is just sort of extended into this regime. And when people see something bad, they go, oh, play calling. Oh, it's got to be play calling. Oh, it's got to be play. I think that's really what's happened. Look, play calling or not. And hey, listen, this kind of goes back to even the Jameis thing. When you're the fourth, fifth highest scoring offense in the league, that tells me that in spite of the issues on that side of the ball, you're still being successful, right? In spite of the interceptions and all of Jameis's problems, you're overcoming it. In spite of what you've believed believe to be bad play calling, and for those of you who think that the play calling has been bad, for what you believe to be bad play calling, and I'm not saying whether I think it is or not, it kind of sort of mitigates itself when you go, yeah, but they're still kind of doing their job, They're not winning because the defense has given up, the most points in the league. So, what are you going to do? But anyway, Arians, a lot of people would like to see Arians take that back. I don't expect him to do it. He called Byron Leftwich's play calling, said he was ecstatic about the job that he has been doing this year. Now, this would be the question that I would actually really pose to Ren. Under Cutter, I talked about this just a second ago, the idea of play calling was something that everybody talked about. Well, under this new coach, under Bruce Arians, it seems to be the same issue. All right, if it really is an issue, let's just say it is. It seems to be the same issue. So my theory then comes back to maybe it's not the coach. Maybe it's really not the coach. Maybe it's us, because the common denominator in that factor is us. Now, collectively, like I said, we've kind of been on this play calling bandwagon. But here's the thing. All right, let's look at our opponent this week, Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn's calling defensive plays for the Atlanta Falcons. They're not doing good. They're doing worse than we are. He comes in a couple weeks ago, I think he's in their bye week, and he decides to give up play calling to former Buccaneers head coach Raheem Morris. Dirk Cutter's calling plays for the off. And they come out of their bye week and they start tearing it up. I mean, full on. You remember those Saints that just had their way with us this past week? Yeah. The Atlanta Falcons defense limited them to 9 points. 9 points. It's like 3 field. I didn't watch that game, but I'm sure that's 3 field goals. I doubt that that's a touchdown with a missed extra kick. Yeah. And a safety, or a touchdown with a made extra kick and a safety, or a touchdown with a missed extra kick and a field goal. I doubt it's that. It's 3 extra kick, so they kind of come on. You change the play caller and all of a sudden something happens. Okay, let's look at our own home. Remember last year when Mike Smith got fired? Mark Duffner takes over play calling and the defense started improving. They really did. They started improving, at least by the eyeball test. I don't know where they ranked after Duffner after Smith versus before Smith got fired. But the old eyeball test will tell you that they were doing better. Also, Todd Monken on the offense. He took over play calling from head coach Dirk Cutter. And guess what? The offense was doing great. Dirk Cutter takes it back for one game last year, and the offense doesn't score at all. I think it was just a field goal is all they scored. And we got trounced. We got trounced in that game. And what changed between that game and the rest of them? It was the play caller. So guys, here's the thing. Whether or not Leftwich is doing a good job or a bad job, I'm just saying that there is recent historical anecdotal evidence. Okay, I'm not saying that I've well researched this and put in all the caveats to everything, but just anecdotal. The old eyeball test suggests that changing the play caller might be good, and this would be my argument for Bruce Arians to take over play calling once again. I know that he thinks that Byron Leftwich has been doing a good job, and he might be doing a good job. I'm not saying he's not. Okay, however, Byron Leftwich, maybe just in switching over the play calling, maybe that ignites something. Maybe that ignites a spark. I don't know, right? So maybe that's what's going. So is that Ren? Well, hey, look at who has just joined me. Ren Dax from overseas. How's it going over there, buddy?
It's going good. It's classic Ireland, man.
Yeah.
Gray, wet, and cold.
Yeah, and dark for you over there right now, man. It is in the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah, it's 4 a.m. here. I set my alarm. Apparently, I could have sworn it was 6 hours difference. That's what I was told. Yeah. That's why I'm late, everybody. I set my alarm, 3:30 in the morning. So it went off. I got up and found a quiet spot here in the it's at the Abbey Hotel. And oh God, where are we today? Roscommon. We've done lots of driving, which is extremely adventurous. We'll get into that, or maybe we won't. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then I get on and I see Brent talking, and apparently I'm an hour late. So.
Yeah, I left the link up. I had no reason to. I just did. Never clicked out of it. So, well, Ren, I've actually just kind of been going. I was just kind of doing this a little bit solo. But if you want, we'll just jump right in and just kind of keep going. For that, I just was finishing up talking about Bruce Arians and just the idea that, and maybe I'll get your take while I'm talking about this.
Sure.
I was, he talked earlier this week. I don't know if you saw it. I don't know how much you've seen with your travels. He said he's ecstatic about the job that Byron Leftwich has been doing calling plays. And we've talked a bit about the play calling on this show, and where I think, people maybe putting a little too much emphasis on it, maybe a little bit of carryover from the last couple of years with Cutter. I said, however, if we accept that as true, but also we kind of just look at the recent anecdotal evidence of what happens when when a group changes the play caller. Like we look at what happened with Dan Quinn and Raheem Morris up in Atlanta, who we're facing this weekend. It sets them on fire. We look at what happened last year when Mark Duffner took over play calling for the defense. It didn't set them on fire, but it certainly improved. Or when
they dropped the whole touchdown.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. They dropped a touchdown a game, exactly. When Todd Monken took over play calling from Dirk Cutter, and if you remember that one game that Dirk Cutter took over last year and we scored like one field goal on, and then it went back to Todd Monken, like even if Byron Leftwich, and my point was being this, and this would be my question to you, even if Byron Leftwich is doing a good job at play calling,
right?
Is there not something that maybe just in changing the play caller that might spark something and get something going? Now that being said, we still have the fourth or fifth highest scoring offense in the league, but still, like, could that not be provide a spark to the team?
Yeah, but it could also go the other way.
That's it's very true.
It could go the other way, and I mean, as far as BA's judgment goes in game, let's not forget that no one's happy with it. The double timeouts and and the questionable red flag throwing and being stubborn with I'm just throwing it to prove a point. I'm just throwing it, and I don't have one just to prove a point.
Right.
So, I mean,
that wouldn't get better, I guess, if you add in play calling to that, right?
Well, but what I'm saying is, like, we've seen BA's decisions on in game since he's been back, and no one's happy with him. Right. I mean, you kind of put up with him because he's BA, which is a little weird, but there's no guarantee the offense is going to get better. But yeah, it can provide a spark, but then again, like, we're on the side of the ball, we're really kind of splitting hairs,
Yeah.
There's really only about, 4 or 5, like, and maybe if you want to get nitpicky, you can go up to 10 plays. The concepts aren't going to change. Like, if BA starts calling the plays, there's still not going to be slants, there's still not going to be crosses, there's still not going to be drags. They're just not in the, he signs off on the offensive game plan.
Right.
So the middle of the field is still, largely going to be ignored into, in the short to intermediate passing game. It's like, I get it because we're losing. We've talked about this. You start pointing fingers and trying to, like, who's to blame? Right. Like, why are we, 3-8 now? 3-7?
Yeah. No, we're 3-8.
Yeah. So, pointing fingers, you're trying to point fingers at people and figure out what's wrong. But, there are some things to talk about, like we're doing with the offense, but the offense isn't the problem, Right. It's 2 games they didn't show up. One of them they won, the Carolina game, and then this past game, and everything else, they've put up more points than they've needed to win.
Right. And I've kind of started changing that, and Ren, I've never actually asked you about this, but I've sort of changed that mantra of the problems not on the offense to say the main problems are not on the offense, because there are still issues on the offense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, exactly. But even if we're the 49ers and we're 8-1, 9-1?
Yeah, something like that.
There's still people talking about stuff. Like, they're talking about how the offense isn't good enough. Unless you're number 1 in offense and number 1 in defense, you'll still talk about the holes. Like, well, that right guard spot's kind of weak. He's given up the most sacks, and you're undefeated, and the team's undefeated.
Right.
I mean, that's what you do because you're constantly trying to improve. But,
right. And you get that, and I was just talking about this a little bit before you came on. You get that hyper-focused nature that we get on our team, and we don't look at it, we don't see it in the broader context of 32 teams necessarily. So, fair enough. Well, Ren, why don't we keep talking about the offense? I want to move over and talk about our 3rd wide receiver position, maybe even our 4th wide receiver position. Scotty Miller getting more and more involved in the offense this week. 4 receptions on 6 targets for 71 yards. And kind of my question is are we starting to see them trying to push him above Rashard Perryman? This week he played 35 snaps. Perriman only played 36. So they're dead even, really, in splitting the snaps, both at about 50-50. Although there were times when they were both on the field at the same time, so it's not necessarily one taking the other's job. It's just, Rashad's seeing a few less plays, Scotty's seeing a few more plays. I don't know. What do you think? Is this an indication that, kind of like we saw Rojo taking over that spot from Peyton Barber, maybe they're looking to move Scotty Miller into that spot as opposed to Rashard Perriman?
Well, we heard back in preseason, with one of our guests, and they, leaked it to us that this team really likes Scotty Miller. Like they're really excited about him. Like that's why they drafted him.
Yeah.
They drafted him not to be the slot because Chris Godwin's the slot. They drafted him to be the outside, take the top off the defense, speed guy that Bruce Arians has had in his offenses where he's played. And so we're excited about
I'm sorry, to that point though, and this came out this week. Greg Allman over at The Athletic wrote a story about Scotty Miller relaying about the Bucs' excitement all the way back then when he had his pro day back in Bowling Green. Scotty Miller did. The Buccaneers were the only team that had coaches show up at the pro day, not just scouts but actual coaches. And it was Byron Leftwich and the wide receivers coach Kevin Garver, something like that. They were they kind of laid low. They didn't want people to really see him there, and they clocked him. He ran his 40 at 4.30, which is really, really fast. And then they were kind of mad because they're like, crap, everybody else just saw that. Yeah. So like they really wanted to keep it quiet. Like they were very, very excited about him, but they kind of wanted to keep a lid on it. So
did they wear mustaches and cowboy hats?
I think they had the glasses with the banana nose on it.
Oh, very good. Yeah. Yes, that is low key. Well, in Bowling Green, oddly enough, that is. That's a thing there.
Yes, and it's not Bowling Green, Kentucky, as I was so mistakenly said earlier this year. So.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. No. Because there's a Bowling Green, Kentucky, and there's a university there, and I thought that might be what they're talking about. But apparently, it's an actual university in like Ohio or something.
It's in Ohio. Yeah. That's where Urban Meyer got his start.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah. Before he went to Utah, then Florida, then Ohio State.
And here's the thing: I grew up living there like for the first 30 years of my life, and I never knew that there was a Bowling Green in Ohio. I just always thought it was Bowling Green in Kentucky. So whatever. Anyway, Brent, I gotta say, this show is so much better when you're on it with me, brother.
I agree, but I missed the first half, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hey, since we got off track there for a little bit, I got to tell the story, man. Like,
okay, go ahead.
If you watch, sort of like videos of like everyone knows you drive on I don't say the wrong side of the road, the opposite side of the road here. Cheryl lasted about 10 minutes. She's like, yeah, I can't do it. She's like,
okay.
Yeah, I'm doing it. And we're still in Dublin, where it's pretty crazy. But this trip is definitely sort of in the middle and western side of Ireland, where we flew into Dublin, but we didn't stay there. So we're not staying in Galway, we're not staying in Cork, we're not staying in Glasgow. Like none of those places that when you hear Ireland, like the big cities, So the roads, they talk about how tight they are.
Yeah.
I was like, the GPS was taking me on roads that were cow paths. Like there was actually grass growing in the middle of the gravel road that, well, of course, was not wide enough for two cars. And then it starts to rain. Then it gets dark. And now we're back on, I guess, their quote unquote better roads, which are barely wide enough for two cars,
right? And
people are on my butt, and it's dark because they've been driving these roads, since they're wee lads and wee lasses, and it's 20 minutes of driving in Ireland in the rain at night at 80 kilometers an hour on a road
which is about 60 miles an hour measurement.
Yeah. So driving in the dark where you don't know where they're going, and roads are not straight here at all. Like it's either going right or going left or going up or going down. Like if it's straight, then you're changing elevation by 20 feet.
Okay.
And straight lasts about 200 meters, and that's like a straightaway. So it's quite an adventure. So driving 20 minutes like that in Ireland feels like it feels like you've been driving like 3 hours, sort of like on like the Florida interstate, like coming down from Jacksonville. It seems like that's the amount of stress level. And then of course there's nowhere to turn off to just sort of like pull over and like, geez,
let people
man,
go around
like
you or something.
Yeah, like to smoke a cigarette and be like, oh my God, this is terrible.
Something, huh?
It's something. Like you're lucky to have a divider line. One.
Right.
And it's been more than once.
You're just describing the back roads of Kentucky, man. That's all you're describing to me right now.
But it's the whole country.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Ireland's probably about as big as Kentucky.
Yeah, it's not big. But besides that, I mean, even though the weather is exactly how like Ireland, when people talk about London, oh, it's gray and rainy. But the people are great and everyone's like really nice. So we're having a really good time.
Good, man. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it.
And shout out to everyone who wished me happy birthday on Twitter today. I don't know how they all found out, but thank you.
Yeah, I realized I didn't know, and I saw that going out there, and actually that was going to be one of the headlines that I talked about It's apparently Rendak's birthday. So happy birthday, Ren.
Thank you. And thanks to all who said happy birthday. And again, I don't know how they found out.
Yeah, I'd get you a present, but you're not here right now. So, maybe next year.
Sure.
Hey, one more thing on Scotty Miller before I move off him altogether. And this is kind of a separate note. Do you know, apparently he was the fastest man in the NFL this past week?
Oh, with this chip?
Yeah, the little chip. Turns out on that big play that he ran down 48 yards or whatever, missed it by 1 yard. Missed it by that much. Little Get Smart reference for you. He was going over 21 miles an hour. They clocked him at, which made him the fastest guy in the NFL this week. The fastest.
I wonder what his per catch average is right now.
I don't know. There's not a huge sample size for him,
Right, well, that doesn't matter. The important part is I picked him to have the biggest per catch average on the team.
Gotcha.
That was my bold prediction.
Okay. As far as speed, you mean? Like miles per hour? Or
per catch, yards per catch.
Oh, yards per catch. Yeah. I was actually looking at that a few minutes ago. I want to say it was 71 yards. That was what he got for the game. Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll look that up. We'll get back to that.
I also had Anthony O'Clair with 6 TD receptions.
You did, but injury took that out, and he was going to get there. I know. It was be a lopsided season for him, but he was
well on his way.
Yeah, he was.
He's well on his way with 0.
Yeah.
And then my other one was 2,000, or was it 2,000, or was like 2,200 total yards from Barber and Rojo, or from the backfield.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's not going to happen.
No, that's not going to happen either.
So I'm pinning all my hopes on Scooty.
Scooty Miller. Let's see here. Interesting news to me anyway, just things I never realized, just to point this out. And I came across this in my research for today's show. Kevin Minter has only played 2 snaps since Devin White came back. That's it. 2. Darian Stewart has played 0 snaps you remember that guy? He was supposed to be a safety. He's played 0 snaps for the last 3 games and has only had a total of 14 snaps in the last 10 games. Which I know there's depth, but you sit there and go, why are you on this roster again? Why are we holding on to you?
Well, they brought him in when they realized Justin Evans wasn't coming back.
Sure, but
and then he played, and they went, okay, where's that Adam? Where's the second president of the United States?
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. I get that there's depth issues, but at some point I go, well, why are you still on this team if we're not,
he's a Ryan Smith of the safeties.
Yeah, I guess. Jamel Dean, by the way, having 0 defensive snaps last week, unfortunately, but BA has been adamant he wants him back on the field this week. Got to find a way to get him on the field, so we'll see. That's one of those I'm just going to go back and go, oh, we'll see. I can't predict this team anymore, hardly, Ren.
Well, we talked about that.
Yeah,
we talked about that.
We did.
How he got forced into play, and they played strictly just about over 90% in man against Seattle, and then they regroup and they have a game plan for. I'm sorry, I'm out of sorts. Who did we play? We played last
the
week?
Saints.
The Saints.
Well, no, I'm sorry. We didn't play the Saints. They played us. Is very much. We just sat there and took it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So he didn't get in against the Cardinals, and when he did, he played. He played great. But he didn't play a lot of plays. So he played the Saints, and they're going. And the defensive plan was to play pretty much 90% or more strictly zone, and so they didn't play Jamel Dean. So again, that tells me that he's the guy. When DBA talks about we can't play zone because we can't communicate, he's the guy. Because when he played, they played all man, and when he didn't play, they played all zone because they wanted to play all zone. He can't play zone. They were forced to play all man against Seattle. That's my theory, anyway.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. Todd Bowles came out and said it's his job to get Jamel Dean into the game plan. It's his job to get Jamel Dean out on the field and figure out how to make that happen. So we'll see. I'd like to. At this point, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel going into this game, and I'm better than I was, through the first 6 days of this week. But we'll see what happens this coming up week. Hey, let's move on. I got 2 more notes for us for headlines. Remember last year when the Buccaneer players started that social justice initiative and they were going out and doing a bunch of stuff? Well, they're back at it this week in the news, and this was a big thing. Carmen Vitale, by the way, has a fantastic write-up about this at Buccaneers.com. Just from a pure reading a story, like the way she wrote the story, was really good. I recommend you guys all go read it. But the Buccaneers are back at it. They were in a bunch of courtrooms apparently this week observing bail hearings or bond hearing, and kind of basically raising their awareness to the issues that people face when they're going before a bond judge, to whether or not they're going to be able to get released. And basically what they came out with was whether or not you get out just depends on your economic status. status, really. And it's kind of unfair. It's kind of slanted. They were teaming up with or talking with Anquan Boldin. Was he a former Buccaneer, right?
No, he went to Florida State.
Okay. So for whatever reason, he's here, but he has like his whole charity is all about helping change, I guess, judicial policies. And he's been quite successful with that over in like Orange County, where Orlando is, and in several other counties. So now they're kind of focusing in on Hillsborough County. So they're bringing the players in, trying to raise their awareness and help them use their voice to go forward. So that's just, I guess, a little update on what they did this week as far as bringing that in this year.
I really like that. And, I've hinted, I don't know if I've done it on the air, but I've told you a few times, I'm no angel, I've been in my fair trouble, and I've been in front of the judge my, fair share of times, and him telling me how much money it is going to cost me to go home instead of sit in jail and wait for trial. And, I'm no mastermind criminal or, some retarded, no, I shouldn't say retarded, but I don't have any type of addiction problem. So it's not like, am I back?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. So, and I don't have any type of addiction problem, so I'm not in front of the judge a lot. So I never get this huge fine. But, being in there, I see those things. And, people that are in quote unquote serious trouble, obviously it costs more money, and it really does. It all depends on how much money you have. It's not a percentage of what you make, and, this would be the appropriate amount because I'm telling you it's serious.
Right.
It's like, it's going to cost you a lot of money to get out. Well, if you're a doctor, lawyer, you get to go home.
Right.
If you're not, you don't. And that's just, it's just not fair.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look into that, or I'm going to read that and look into it and see what he's doing, because that's something that I think about because I've been in it. You know what I mean? So I'll think about that, a few times a year, go, man, like a story I'll click on the internet and see, and I'm like, it's just unfair. But it's not a, it's a tale as old as time. Whoever has gold make the rules, and the second rule is, to me, is whoever has gold gets out of trouble easily.
Yes, yeah, I get that. I did, just for clarity, I did check with Carmen to see if there was something specific the initiative was trying to do in Hillsborough County, and she said no. This really was more about raising the awareness of the players so that they could use the platform that they have to then go affect change, whether it's in Hillsborough County or back in wherever their home is.
So this was more of like, hey, if you're interested in helping, here's kind of why we do this.
Exactly. And like I said, I mean, Anquan Boldin's the Players Coalition, I think, is his charity. They're really the ones that are already doing it, and they've been doing it throughout Florida, and they're kind of focusing on Hillsborough County. So cool that something's happening in that area, and that maybe it could have some ripple effects through whatever the players are doing. So I think
that's a good cause. I like it.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Not really something that affects the field, but it is news about our Buccaneers. So this is definitely the week to talk about it, the show to talk about it. All right, one more thing and this does affect us on the field that I want to talk about before we move on to injury reports. Trevor Sikkema. We haven't talked a lot about Trevor in the Cover 3 this year, but he had a really good one. He's had good ones all year long, but he had a really good one this past week in particular, where he takes a look at how the players rank among their counterparts in the league. And he went to footballoutsiders.com, which actually I referenced earlier, Ren, if you'll remember. That's the website where I went to a couple years ago and said, hey, turns out when Dirk Cutter said that the Bucs were in the O-line was in the top half of the league, turns out they were number 16, but that's still good enough. And what they did was they didn't just take like a certain stat line, like they accounted for all the different variables and adjusted the rate to make the ratings.
Yeah.
Well, they've done that for all the different positions and stuff, and he was just looking to see where the various people ranked. And turns out he was looking at several key people, but Jameis obviously is the one he started with. Jameis is below average. Now he kind of like the Bucs O-line was technically in the top half. Jameis Winston is technically in the bottom half because he's like 17 in one rank, and then like he's like 18, and another one he's 20. So he's floating in that very top of the bottom half type deal, but for all his different categories. And Trevor says, this ranking is given the context of the situations, including the strength of the defense that he's playing and situational football for each play. Winston has yielded slightly less than average results when compared to the rest of the team around the league, which, as we're in this discussion this year, especially about what to do with Jameis and where he is. And yeah, we have the fourth or fifth, most points scored and all of this that are the turnovers his fault? Are they not? Whatever. All of those things, when you take all that stuff combined, he's, right in the middle, a little bit less than the middle line, that's kind of just where Jameis is. And, I think that that's worth a discussion, that if that is a fair spot, and I know you don't have that research in front of you and I'm not going to dictate it to everybody here now, but if that's a fair spot, is that a guy we want to sign? Let's take out Jameis altogether. Just put any other quarterback who is ranked in that area. Is that the quarterback you want to sign to a long-term second deal, or do we go find a new quarterback?
Well, that is the question, isn't it, Brent?
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm going to be able to answer it for everybody right now.
By the way, Trevor's point was we've got 6 games to figure this out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take out, like you said, and I think that's probably the best way to approach it, is take out Jameis. Just say it's like Buccaneers quarterback player X.
Right.
You would like to see that improved.
Sure.
And then see, especially with the big contract coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know exactly, against certain defenses, yes, but does it account for his defense? I'm not exactly sure how it works, so I can't sort of nail down, wow, Jameis really needs to turn it on, or is it another but? It's like, okay, yes, he has performed at, we'll just say average, because we'll say average somewhere between like 14 and 20.
Okay. Yeah, and he would fall in that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll say he's average. I guess 14 and 8 to 18 would be more fair. We'll say he falls in there somewhere. And we'll say he's an average quarterback. But I don't know if that stat takes into how many points. Does that take into, like, they're giving up the most points, they're giving up the most passing yards? Like, I don't know if it does that. And if it does, then it would be yes. Then I would be more concerned than I am right now.
Yeah. And I think the whole point of what they're doing at Football Outsiders is they're taking out they're trying to account for as many of these variables and seeing what is actually on that player given what he's facing, in each play versus each defense and in all those situations. How does that, like, they're trying to account for that. Obviously, there's so many different, and they're doing this for everyone in the league, by the way. It's not just James, right?
Whatever their formula is, it's this is it.
Yeah. It's pretty complex.
But also, there's been a lot of talk this week, even before I left, was about the type of offense that this is running, the long developing routes.
Sure.
When you play a team like the Saints and the offensive line can't hold up, like, where is the short passing game?
Right.
Where is they tried a couple of screens to the running backs, but the Saints kind of, had that covered.
Yeah.
But what about the quick outs to Chris Godwin? Or, it was supposed to be a big day for the tight ends, but I don't know if they got mad at O.J. Howard or what, and not like he deserved all the passes, but they all went to Cam. But that's not the same. I think Cam's let's say Cam's had 150 catches in his career as a Buccaneer, and probably his yak's 50 yards total.
Yeah, because he usually catches it and falls.
Yeah, he doesn't go anywhere. He's lucky if he gets separation. What's great about Cam is that he'll catch contested catches. He'll catch it, but as soon as he catches it, he gets tackled because he didn't separate. And then, like I said, the long developing routes and not using the middle of the field, and that hinders your quarterback, because you always hear this talk about, well, he's hard to sack, get the ball out quickly. This person's hard to sack, get the ball out quickly. We don't get the ball out quickly. Like we don't. I know that I think someone actually went and looked at it, and James is kind of like in the middle, again, average as far as holding the ball for when he does get the ball out quickly. But then again, you have to see, well, what does that mean? I mean, is it because they run a lot of screens and that drops it really low?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said, I don't know I don't know what magic they use to figure out all of these things, but I don't know. Again, taking Jameis out and just saying player X at the quarterback position is ranking 17th, 18th in the league, and we're about to sign him to a second, contract, probably will make him the highest paid quarterback in the league until the next quarterback signs. Is that do we want to do that? and stay with that guy and hope he improves, or try to go to the next guy in the draft?
Right.
And I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that.
In the vacuum, it's no, you don't.
Yeah.
Because it's not good enough. Because you are trying to win Super Bowls.
Right. Right.
Not a Super Bowl. You're trying to win Super Bowls.
Right.
So in a vacuum, it's no. But then you have to look at the roster, and you got to see where you're at with the roster, and I think with this roster, the better deal would be to grab a veteran quarterback, kind of like what we did with Brad Johnson.
Sure.
Like the roster's kind of in place. Obviously, the secondary needs some work, but besides that, fix the right tackle, maybe flip down the other side, get a left tackle. I think everyone will kind of be happy. Like no one was upset about the running backs, wide receivers, defensive line, linebackers. No one's too terribly upset about the safeties. It's the corners and it's the offensive line, and that's all anyone really talks that think there really needs mass improvement. So that's not a lot of things.
But even that offensive line, though, Ren, just a couple of weeks ago, PFF ranked them 9th. Now PFF doesn't have the algorithm the Football Outsiders uses,
right?
But I mean, still, even with that. Some of those, you're not going to get perfect on every single unit across your team.
Right.
I mean, you get as close as you can, but and I was talking about this before you came on, Ren, like with Jameis, we go into that, you wanted to cry Jameis for all the bad things. Well, you're right. And you want to give all the reasons why it's not really his fault. Well, guess what? You're also right. And the point being, regardless of whose fault it really is, if there's just this black cloud around somebody that it's just not getting done on their watch, their fault or not, take this out of football, put it in any business, in a restaurant. Hey, listen, I don't know what it is about Sam, but every time he's here, stuff gets dropped and plates get broken and food comes out wrong, and it's never his fault. It's always this guy or this guy or this guy, and sometimes those are legitimate things.
But Sam is always involved.
But Sam's always involved, and so we can't have him here. It's kind of the same thing as what I was saying earlier. If that really is the case with Jameis, and maybe it is, I don't know right now. I really don't. It's kind of why I'm not really jumping on the train. I want to get it. He's not giving me a reason to right now. But anyway, moving on from this though, Ren, just a couple of the other things, and I'm going to spoil Trevor's cover 3, but I'm not going to tell you why, so you guys should still go read his cover 3, pewterreport.com. He said Rojo has more than earned his starting role over Peyton Barber, and they need to keep feeding him. O.J. Howard, despite the really bad year he's been having, when you take a look at what he's done in previous years versus what he's had right now, his potential is there, so they really should keep feeding him. They don't need to cut him off, because where he could go, he's really low right now, but he could shoot to the top of the charts really quickly if he turns on. So, that was kind of something he was noting.
But we all know that.
Right, because what we saw in the Saints game was, hey, he bobbled the pass, and almost in punishment fashion, they just went, okay, we're not going to touch him for the rest of the game.
Right, but we all know he has the talent. Yeah. That's the thing.
Right.
This kind of goes back to the black cloud thing, and it's well, look what he's done before. Well, yeah, but everyone's just mad at O.J. Howard, and rightfully so.
Yeah,
you can't argue that he doesn't have the talent. You can't argue, that if you feed him the ball, he's not going to produce if he catches it.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that's the frustrating thing about O.J. Howard. It's just it's you should be a weapon on this offense. You should be. You have the talent to be weapon number 2.
Yeah,
you do.
Well,
right behind
I don't know. I don't know because Godwin has ranked the number 1 wide receiver according to their algorithm, number 1 across the whole league. By the way, Mike Evans was number 4. So for whatever that and Trevor's point was, no matter what, feed Godwin and Evans. Keep feeding them, which is, by the way, is what I've been saying, and I think I said it, and it's part of the thing that set me off this past week. And I'm not trying to get back to that spot again, but the idea that you don't go to these guys, I don't care what the other defense is doing, you still have to do it. You've still got to get there to them. And I don't, and I'm saying that without watching all the film and everything like that, but whatever, no matter what, feed them. And that's coming off of Trevor. So anyway, yeah, so that's all the headlines that I have for this week, Ren. And I think you pretty much caught up on everything that I was talking about before you got here. So with that, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the injury report as we start to look at this Atlanta game a little more closely. First, coming up on them, Devontae Freeman is going to be out of this game. Which should be good. They have a safety and a tight end, Austin Hooper and Kamal Ishmael, who will also be out. And they have a couple of guys that are questionable, but they're going to play. Everybody else is full participation. So, outside of of Devontae Freeman, this is going to be a fairly healthy Atlanta Falcons team.
Hooper's their number one guy. He's good.
Oh, he is? Okay.
He's gonna hurt them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? Hopefully that helps us then. I don't know. Marshawn Lattimore him being out didn't really hurt us. Help us much last week. So.
It hurts them. It doesn't know if it's gonna help us.
Right. There you go. But turning attention to the good guys, the Buccaneers. Anthony Nelson is still out with a hamstring injury. Man, those hamstring injuries just last, don't they? They really. I mean, this is what I think his third or fourth week going into a hamstring.
I wonder if it was the same hammy he pulled in training camp, which made him miss like all the preseason games.
Did he?
Just about, yeah.
Oh, that's right, he did, yeah. And it was a surprise that he was still around or something. They liked enough of him of what they saw to bring him back for practice squad, but he
made the roster.
Did he actually make the roster?
Yeah, he was their fourth round, defensive end tackle.
I remember the thought with Anthony Nelson was he didn't participate in preseason. They kept him around, the 53-man roster or practice squad. They kept him around because they liked the little bit they did see, even though they didn't get to see a lot. That was the thought that I remember having.
Yeah, they were high on him. He wasn't going anywhere. Even if he pulled his hammy, signing his contract or seriously, first, okay, hey, this is a locker room, and he goes down.
Right.
He wasn't going anywhere because he was a fourth round draft pick. And
have you ever noticed walking around One Buc Place, and you and I have been there a few times, everywhere is carpeted. Yeah. You're not accidentally going to slip in the hallway of One Buc Place.
Maybe he trips.
Well, yeah.
Get shot by a sniper.
There
Goes
you
down.
go. Yeah. Snipers on top of the building at One Buc during practice.
Yeah.
So is there Anthony Nelson? He'll be out this week. MJ Stewart is out again with still a knee issue. Carl Nassib will go. He's listed as questionable, but he's going to go. He was full participation by Friday. And outside of that, everybody else was really Will Golston was in it. JPP was in it. Jameis Winston has an ankle injury, but he was full participation all week. So, they'll tape him up and he'll go out there and hobble around and he'll continue to play.
Yeah.
So that's our guys. Now, with that, so Ren, they gave you 2 inactives. You haven't thought about this at all, have you?
Did I mention there's no street lights in any of these roads?
You did.
Did I say there's no street lights? I did say it was dark, but I didn't want people to think.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. I didn't want people to think it was dark, and I'm not driving on 4th Street North or Dale Mabry. There's no street lights.
Right.
And since none of the roads are straight, a lot of times you'll see the headlights coming at you, and they're in your lane.
Right.
Because, like I said, there's nothing straight either. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Why did I tell this story? Oh.
I don't. Somehow we were talking about inactives, and you got into telling us a story. I'm not sure how it's going to wrap back around, but I'm on the edge of my seat, going, how is this going to come back to this?
Mm-hmm. So that is a very long story for people to feel sorry for me that I have not done my inact list, like you hinted at before.
Are you serious? You told me this whole story to say, nope, I don't have my inactives list. Because I thought you were going to be like, yes, and I had time to research, and I met.
No, because a lot of all these sites are outside that we're looking at. We're never really connected to the internet. So,
dude, you are on vacation, man. It's all right. I've got you hooked up though, because I've already got my 7. So why don't I run through them?
I think they're going to be the same as my 7 that I have here.
You think so? Well, let's find out. I'll go first this time, Ren. I'll go first.
Okay, you go first this time.
Anthony Nelson and MJ Stewart. They already gave those to us. And then I'm going with Gerald Hawkins and Aaron Stymie. Those are our 2 offensive linemen that'll be sitting as well. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with Jordan Leggett as our 4th tight end. So we've got OJ, Cam, and Tanner Hudson as our active tight ends. And then I'm going to go with Mazzie Wilkins. That I think was the cornerback we brought in last week.
Right.
Still going with him because you questioned me. You're like, even with MJ sitting, we're going to go with Mazzie. I went, yeah. And they did it last week. So I'm still going to sit him. And the last one I'm going to do, Carl Nassib is going to be back this week. So I think it's somebody in that room. And it's going to be Cousin Daniels. It's going to be your, what'd you call him?
Bedazzle Eye Patch?
Yeah. What was his, the Eye Patch the Pirate. Him. So that's my 7 is Anthony Nelson, Jay Stewart, Jordan Leggett, Gerald Hawkins, Aaron Stymie, Mazzie Wilkins, and Cousin Daniels, because we've got some guys back and it beefed up our room. So
I say Mazzie plays. Oh, I just found my list. There it is.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It says Mazzie plays and they sit Darian Stewart.
Could be. There's all could be possibly. So we'll find out. We'll find out come this weekend. Come about 24-ish hours, maybe 28, 30 hours. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But Ren, as we turn the corner here, let's close out the show. I'll give you a chance chance for any final words about the game coming up on Sunday, what you think is going to happen, or what might happen, and then tell the folks where they can, I guess, not really follow your adventures. You don't have internet over there to tell us what's going on, but they can still get in touch with you for when you get back.
Sure. The best place to find me next week is on Twitter, at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football, unless I'm on the other side of the world on vacation. About the game, I honestly haven't given much thought. Did I tell you that that the rows are tight here?
They're tight, yeah. You mentioned that. I think you said that in the story.
So I haven't had a lot of time to sort of like daydream as I'm driving. Mm-hmm. I can see why like a lot of people become like Formula One drivers. You know, like I see why race car drivers, like the great ones, come out of Europe because they just don't know it. They don't know any better. I mean, it's yeah. So let's see. It's going to be interesting because the Cardinals haven't given up a touchdown since they did the big coaching changes. Mm-hmm. But I don't expect that to hold true. This will be a division game. I think it'll be close, but I also thought the other division games would be close too. But I just since it's my birthday week, I think the Bucs know that, and they're going to do everything they can to get a win for me. Yeah, over here in the motherland. So.
And we know that they listened to the Instant Cast this past week, so they know exactly.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I don't know, Ren, given your track record this week, I'm willing to say everything the opposite of whatever you just said.
Sure.
Look, bottom line, the Falcons, I don't know if it's fair to say that they're red hot. They've had two really good games. And as you said, they haven't allowed a touchdown in the last two games. And they've won both of their last two games. I don't know that that's quite red hot status yet, but it's really, really warm. Like they're on a roll. They're real. This week establishes a streak.
They're playing good football.
They are. And this will establish that. So the Buccaneers, however, have not been. We won the Arizona game, but it was against Arizona. Like, we've just not been playing good football, especially not against good football teams. So, I wish I could be more positive about it. I really do. But I would love for them to prove me wrong. I would really, really I'd love to have a great instant cast on Sunday night for what we're going to do there. But I don't know. That's just where I am with it. It's Falcons are heating up, and the Bucs just seem to be stagnant, if not trailing off.
I expect a better game offensively.
Yeah.
Not necessarily scoring, but sort of the flow, the way it feels, because the Saints really shut the Bucs down. I think they got like 5 of their first downs on penalties. So it really helped the Bucs sort of stay in the game. Stay within that 10-point window that we were in forever. But like BA said, the Falcons have made it really simple. Right. So I think our skill players will be enough to overcome, but they're playing fast. So I think the flow will be a little better, but maybe the defensive stops will sort of be on par with what the Saints did. And again, hey, what a shocker! So it's gonna come to our defense. Yeah. It's gonna come out to our defense. If the Falcons score 30, I think we lose.
Okay.
If they score 24, that's like a 50-50 shot. And if they score anything under 24, I think we win.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would put it a little lower than that. If they score under 9, we'll win.
If they score under 1, we will eventually win
or tie. If they score under 1, we will either win or tie for sure. I will.
Sure.
I bank it. Put money down on it. All right, Red. That's going to do it.
Block.
There you go. That's going to do it for us for this edition of Buc in the News. Thanks for joining me halfway through. Like I said, shows better when you're here. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've tried to do a solo show. So I appreciate you jumping in. And man, have a great vacation. If you guys want to find me at Brent Allen Live across all the social medias personally, find the show at the Pewtercast on Twitter, on Facebook. Stay tuned to our Twitter account. That's where we give you most of the up-to-date news. Instacast coming out this Sunday. Then we'll be back next week with an all-new, do the whole thing all over again next week. So you guys stay with us. Stay tuned. We'll let you know anything that is happening. And until then, go Bucs.